Hey, good to see you all here. I told you in the chat I'm so thrilled that the wood chipper next door has shut down for the morning. Hey, I know that you have been working really hard on your family tree, and perhaps you've been researching for decades. Now you're kind of wondering if anybody out there is even interested in your family, will even want your research when you're gone. Well, you're not gone yet. I'm not gone yet. And there's a lot that we can do right now to absolutely make sure that we save our genealogy research from destruction. So last week I asked you what you wanted to talk about, and I think overwhelmingly I got a response that said that you would love to hear more about how to do this, how to save your research and your family tree and your genealogy and all the hard work that you've done so that it can be appreciated and have a life beyond now. That's what we want. So we're going to tackle that today. And also, you are going to hear from the host of the new NBC TV series. It's sponsored by Ancestry. It's called Roads Less. I keep saying roads. It's Roots Less Traveled. I think that's right. Tauheed, Faruq Tauheed is here this morning, and he is going to be talking about the show. They just wrapped up their first season, and I think they've got fingers crossed that there's going to be another season, and you guys can help with that. So we're going to meet him here today. I need to sit, like I can hear a frog in my throat. Oh, now, this isn't an official teacup, but it is one of my absolute favorite mugs. This is Limehouse in, I think it's in Derbyshire. It's just outside of Manchester in England. And Bill and I had an opportunity to go there last year and absolutely loved it. I think I have a photo for you. Here we go. This is us. So do you recognize Limehouse? If you are a fan of Pride and Prejudice, particularly the A&E version with Colin Firth, this was Pemberley, right? So this is his house, Pemberley. Excuse me. And in fact, we got an opportunity to not only tour the inside of the house, but also tour the house that was actually the interior of Mr. Darcy's house in Pride and Prejudice, which was, I believe, Sudbury House. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's what it was. We went to a lot of houses in just about a week. But I have to say Lime was one of my favorites. So this was my little, they don't really have, the traditional teacups anymore in any of the house tea shops. It's all the mugs, but I love my mug. All right, let's head over here. So I love seeing you all in chat. I love how early you get here and you start visiting with each other. And I do my best to kind of jump in, but it's always kind of challenging because I'm always scrambling and getting last minute finishing touches on the show. I understand that last week I think I sent you on a bit of a wild goose chase, didn't I? I kept saying, put the comments down in the comment below the show video at the YouTube channel so that you could kind of help us get some YouTube juice for the show. The more interaction, the more that YouTube kind of shares your video out to other people who might be interested in genealogy. So that's what we're hoping for. And also, I love having it in the comments because it's really easy for me to go back through after the show is over and kind of check out what you guys have to say. And I was asking you last week about what do you want to hear this week? And I heard people saying, what comments? What are you talking about? I think the deal is that because we have a live chat going on during the show, the comments don't show up yet. I think that may be what it is. As soon as the live show is over and the video replay comes on and is available, then there's a comment section down below. But you guys were very sweet. You left comments after the show was over. You went to the show notes page over at genealogygems.com and you left comments, which there's always an opportunity for you to do there at the bottom of every show notes page. So thank you so much because my friends, this is our show together. So it's important to me that you get a chance to communicate back with me and let me know what you want to talk about too. Oh, we have lots of people who enjoy, we have folks from England tuning in, people who love England. Jane Austen, oh my gosh, I tell you. Oh, let's see here. You're right. Blessed have toured both those and Rosings. Oh, Rosings Park. Yes. We didn't make it there, but I want to do that next time. I was kind of actually hoping to make it back this year, but not with this current situation. Last year, I was speaking at, it was called the Genealogy Show. It was a brand new conference that they had started up in Birmingham. And so that's why we had a chance to go and stay in a little farm for about a week over there in Derbyshire, which was gorgeous. Okay. And thank you so much for all of you guys who are in chat, who help each other. I know sometimes when things get out of sync, typically it's just refresh your computer. And my goodness, Jean, thank you so much for helping out. I know you guys look after each other and make sure that you can all watch the show. So I appreciate that. Also last week, I think it was last week, Diane left a question in the chat and she said, do you save the chat? Because I am unable to read it while I'm working, because maybe she's listening while she's working. So it's hard on my end because I'm signed into my account and doing all the back end stuff. So I see the chat after the show is over, and it's over in the right-hand pane. I actually went onto Bill's computer to check it because he has nothing to do with my account, and I could see the chat there as well. I think the trick is that with some of the first episodes that we did here on YouTube, the chat feature wasn't available. So it is now. So I was looking, I think from about episode 6 or so, coming forward to now we're at episode 10. Can you believe it? 10 weeks together. You can find chat still here with the video replay as well. It's not live. If you want to communicate with us, you have to go down to the comments when you're watching the video replay. Okay, so that was the wild goose chase that I sent you on. Thank you so much for being so patient with me. I didn't know what I was talking about, which isn't a huge surprise. Okay, so I wanted to tell you about something. I'm kind of putting my chin on it. Okay. There's going to be a Facebook Live. I'm an old pro at that now. I'm so proud of myself. I'm not worried about this at all because it's coming up on June 3rd and it's going to be with My Heritage and it's going to be at 2 p.m. Eastern. So June 3rd, put this on your calendar. I am going to be doing a presentation I did actually in their booth at the Roots Tech Conference in 2020 for My Heritage. And it was called Fabulous Photo Discoveries at My Heritage. And I'm excited to show you a lot of things. They have so many things going on with photos right now. But we're going to talk about even more than colorization. We're going to talk about actually finding them in their smart matches, tapping into them, some of the tips and tricks. So check it out. Join us over at Facebook Live on the My Heritage page, and that's going to be on June 3rd. All right. Oh, I wanted to read you a wonderful email that I got. Oh my gosh, you guys are so wonderful. I love when you send me the wonderful long emails and your pictures and you tell me what you're doing. I had somebody recently on the show who was telling everybody, she's not kidding. She reads all the emails no matter how long you make them. And I do. I really do. So this was from Alexis. And she says, I'm absolutely loving the tea time shows. Thank you for all of your work and for sharing it with us. I love the pictures and the antiques in your office. Yes, I have. I try to mix them up a little bit. So inspiring. I hope to have an office like that one day. I wanted to send you this picture. It's of my girls and me having a tea party with you. We had milk and cookies. I don't usually let the girls use the toy set for real food, but I made an exception. The girls didn't listen super well, but I try to catch up on the show when I can. Thanks again for doing this. Oh, these babies are adorable. Oh my gosh. Aren't they so cute? I had an opportunity to meet Alexis when the first little girl was born, and she was just the most beautiful cherub baby. So thank you so much for Alexis for writing in. We love having group members here of all ages. And we probably do, from 1 to 100, I'm guessing. So isn't that awesome? Okay, well, I want to jump right into my interview with Faruq Tauheed, because I think many of you have seen the show, and if you haven't, you still can. So without further ado, here is my interview with Faruq Tauheed of Roots Less Traveled. Joining me now is the host of the NBC TV series Roots Less Traveled, Faruq Tauheed. Welcome to the show, Faruq.
Thank you very much for having me, Lisa. How are you?
Good. Now,
Good.
of course, I have an audience full of genealogists who will be very excited to hear about this, but I have to tell you that the fans in my family are actually my grandsons who loved battle bots.
Very cool.
How much fun was that show to do?
Listen, the show is a lot of fun to do. We've actually been postponed because of the COVID-19. We had our 5th season set to go and ready to record in early April, but hopefully we'll be able to get back up and running this summer to bring our 5th season to your grandsons and all our amazing fans out there on Discovery for our 5th season.
And they'll be there with my son-in-law too, watching and cheering on. They love the show.
Listen, the fans of BattleBots are the best. That's why we have to, hopefully we get to recover and get to have everybody there to be able to do this, because I need the fans in the stands for me to be able to do my job, because they give me so much energy and I love it. It's just so much fun.
Oh, they're part of the show, aren't they?
Oh, okay. 100%. 100%.
So the genealogists listening, what we're talking about is this epic robot fighting battle show, which you have to check out. But we're going to talk about Roots Less Traveled. And so this is a very different show to host. How's it going for you? Are you enjoying it?
It was an amazing time. I mean, I get to go on these personal journeys with our castmates, with our heroes, and it's been so informative historically just around our country. I got to learn things that I didn't know just about, just our own history and just the history around these stories. But the personal journeys is really what we connect to. It's an amazing time.
Yeah, that's why we're all so passionate about it. So tell anybody, if they haven't had a chance to watch the show yet, kind of what the premise was. There have been some other genealogy shows. So what kind of an approach are you taking?
The thing that makes Roots Less Traveled different than a lot of the other genealogy shows is that we're dealing with everyday people, number one. And, a lot of the shows kind of dived into celebrities' family history, and that's great. But one of the things that we do that's really unique, and the first time it's been done, is we're taking 2 family members. We take 2 family members that are distant for one reason or another, whether it's time, like generationally, like sometimes we have a grandson and a grandfather. Or maybe it's distance. We had a father and a daughter. They live on opposite coasts of the country. So we bring them together and we help them to, uncover and, whether confirm or deny some of the myths and legends in our family history. I mean, we all have those, right, Lisa? Like we have the stories that get passed down in our families. But we, on our show, Roots Less Travel, we help to either confirm or deny some of those stories. And then I get to be like the host or a guide. And I get to take them on what I call a genealogical treasure hunt, because the things that we uncover and unpack are just super, super valuable.
That's a really neat approach, because I'm such a firm believer that, of course, our family history is the story that came before us, but it's part of our story. And here you've got it pulling together people within a current family and helping them connect with that story. How did you end up getting involved with this show?
It's one of those things, Lisa, for me, it just happened. It literally kind of landed in my lap. I had no idea that, this was going on. My agent told me, hey, you're on a veil for a show. But I'm like, how can I be on a veil for a show that I never auditioned for? And, as a host and being an entertainment industry actor, we audition. So we know kind of what the show is going to be about. Well, this particular project, I guess my agent, the casting director, and the company, the production company, they booked me off of my reel. So when I got the call, I just knew I had the job, and it was like Roots Less Travel. And I was like, okay, now it's time to dive into the deep end and just really understand what I'm about to get myself into. But I mean, I wouldn't have had it any other way. It's just a truly amazing show, and I'm so glad to be a part of it.
So it's a bit of an adventure for you as well, it sounds like.
100%, because we get to travel all over the world. And we were traveling all over the world before, all the shutdowns and lockdowns things happened. Yeah. So I'm really hoping we get able to get a season 2. Restrictions are lifted and we're able to continue on with our great work that we were doing.
Absolutely. I hope it's very soon. I know from what I've read about you is you love travel and you do it a lot and you've been around the world. How is it a little different to travel to a location and realize while you're there that there's more than just enjoying the location, but there's actually this connection going on for real people? How is that for you and how is it for your participants?
For me, as you're saying, I literally have goosebumps. I don't know if you can see my hair kind of raising up on my
Whoa,
skin.
you do.
Yeah, but like because it really is. It's one of those things. One of the things I love traveling, and for me, my core reasons for traveling is to experience culture, and the best way I do that is through food. So
Yeah.
I love tasting other cultures' food. Indian and Thai food is two of my favorite. I've been able to go to both of those. But when you go to some of these cities, specifically even the ones we have here in our own country, we did Mexico City. We also did Cuba on our trip on Roots Less Travel. But being in these places, it's so much more than just food. There really is a lot of history and a lot of things that we don't know. Like when we look around, I think we take for granted when we look around and we see everything that we have, the buildings, the streets, the economy, the way it's shaped, flows, street names, all of that, it has history.
Yeah.
And it was developed by somebody or some people, and it just happens to be, like for instance in Cuba, one of our heroes, their ancestor was involved in creating 32 city blocks of Cuba.
Oh,
Like
wow.
it's just amazing.
And it's got to be just an amazing experience for them, because I know many people will say when you're traveling like that and you're staying there, you just have this sense that others are with you, that you've been there before. Did some of your participants have that kind of experience where they just felt this other kind of connection? It was almost hard to explain.
Yeah, 100%, because they get there, and it's funny because as we're doing the show, as the hosts and the producers, we get together, we try to find the spots, or kind of create the stories or give the angles where we can kind of get an emotional response. And one of the things that was great on this show is being with them on these personal journeys, is that you never knew what was going to trigger them to be emotional. Specifically when I think about Uncle Al, he was our real estate guy from Miami. Yeah, the Cuba episode. Something that you guys didn't see, there was a point where we were just walking the streets of Havana, and we're literally just walking the streets, and he's just looking around, taking it all in. Him being a big real estate guy, he kind of sees, where he could kind of imagine where it came from, where Cuba was when his ancestor was there, and where it is now. And just walking the streets, we were just walking the streets, having a local non-alcoholic favorite drink that they have there. I think it was made with tamarind, tamarindo, and yeah, he's just walking the streets, and he just started sobbing.
Oh.
And he started sobbing because he felt the spirit of just, and I couldn't make the connection because I didn't have that, but he had it. It was his family, it was his ancestors. So it's just great to be there and be a part of those moments and be able to support them, as we go along on this journey. So it's just really special.
Well, that's what you do such a beautiful job of, is, you're facilitating that, but you're also facilitating it for the audience. They're watching this and they're getting those connections and realizing we all have the potential to make those kinds of connections out there for ourselves. I'm guessing you were probably pretty new to genealogy when you got involved with the show. Did Ancestry take some time and show you some things about your family history? What have you discovered?
Yeah, I still consider myself to be a newbie even after this season, and I'm so excited to learn so much more. They say it takes, and I'm sure you know this, and a lot of your fans know out there, they say it takes anywhere from 600 to like 800 hours of like researching even just one side of a family tree. For me, one of the great things I love about Ancestry is that when you go on their website, it's kind of crowdsourcing, right? So if you have people that were in your family that kind of made some connections already, when you hop on, sometimes some of the work is done for you. I experienced that with myself because I had some family member on my dad's side that kind of went and got all the way back to my 4-time great-grandfather on my dad's side, which is amazing because I never even knew my grandfather's name. So even for me, it was emotional just seeing those names pop up, seeing the Leafs pops up on Ancestry, and seeing like my great-grandfather, my third great-grandfather's name pop up. It just made me emotional just seeing the names because I didn't even know there was a name.
Right. And I can imagine that's the gentleman who went to Cuba. I mean, not only is he discovering the names, but then he actually discovered that there was even this interest in real estate. I mean, how funny. You think it's so random, but I see that over and over again in families, that you see interests or occupations or whatever. And here it is, there again, generation to generation. That's
Lisa,
really neat.
Lisa, that's to me is one of the most amazing things. I think I underestimated it, to be honest with you. I underestimated the power of family history and your genealogy, and knowing, not necessarily knowing where you come from, but knowing the lives of the people that came before you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like you said with him, he always had a passion and love for real estate. And, you know, you go back and you look at his ancestor, and his ancestor was in real estate. It's just like how those connections happen, and the fact that it's like embedded in your DNA is just really, 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 really powerful.
It really is. Well, now you've talked about the Cuba episode. I'm just curious, did you have any other favorite episodes, whether it was the finished, you know, compilation, which I'm sure is just a fraction of what you guys end up doing, or one that you maybe in person felt like was just really amazing?
You know, for me, I think all the experiences for me, I was able to make a personal connection. The one that stands out the most, being African-American, going with Cherie and Devon on their journey to Nashville. Listen, I had a moment when we went to the Tennessee Judiciary Museum. I had a moment where I was able to go in and kind of see beforehand. And I got to be honest with you, Lisa, I broke down. Because they had, you know, to be able to see the names of their family in this museum. And then, you know, I saw original like slave receipts.
Wow.
Of slaves being purchased, enslaved people being purchased, like original receipts from like 1840, 1850.
Yeah.
And when I saw those, I mean, sobbed. I just started sobbing, and I was not prepared to have that response. But yeah, and learning that their family, you know, was gifted from a will 111 out of 112 acres. Yeah. And then not only that, but the decision was upheld multiple times in multiple levels of court before emancipation in the South. Those are stories that we just did not hear. And
what was so significant was didn't the owner, didn't he like only give an acre to his own family, but the bulk of that estate went to the enslaved people? I mean, that was amazing at that time.
Yeah, and we talking about he died in 1843. It was like 1850.
Really early.
Yeah, it was about 1850, 1851 when all the court cases were done and over with, and they were able to get the land. But it's just like you said, you know, he had 112 acres. He had I think he had like 6 or 7 sons, and he only left 1 acre to one of his sons. So the rest of his sons came back to challenge the will after his death. And the thing to me is that I'm sure during that time it was all older white men, and they still ruled in favor multiple times for the African Americans.
Yeah,
in the South pre-emancipation, and that to me was the most shocking thing.
Well, and it opens up our understanding. The more we learn about history, the more we realize it's, you know, no two people are alike, and that sometimes we get into stereotypes when in reality, there's so much variation all throughout history, and it's just so empowering to realize that everybody made different decisions, and that's amazing. And to see those receipts in person, I mean, there's nothing like an original document, you know, to really bring it home to be real. That's amazing.
And I'm telling you, I just really, I mean, I've always, you know, I've heard about slavery, read about slavery, watched movies, all that good stuff. I know, but to actually see that piece of paper, with price on it, and a human being's name to be sold, it was something I'll never forget.
Exactly. Well, it's a tremendous show. I imagine you cover so much as you're trying to film. Have they ever considered doing a web version where they do all the backstory, the stuff that just never makes it to that 22 minutes on the air?
Listen, 22 minutes, Lisa, is not enough. For all that we do with these amazing people, it's just not enough. You know, so many fun aspects of the show that I would love to have implemented. That's one of the things. Our latest episode, the last episode that aired, it was a couple things that we could not get into those, so it's like a compilation episode.
Right.
But I would love for the second season to maybe be an hour. I think the fans would enjoy it. I think we would be able to lock so much more in, because we really, really definitely had the content. When I look back and see the show now, I look back, I'm like, oh, we didn't show this, and we didn't show that, and we didn't show this. This was a great moment. That was a great moment. But you know, restrictions of 22 minutes, it's a lot.
Yeah, I know the feeling. just doing my weekly show on YouTube is just like, oh, there's so much you want to cram in, and so many special things that happen along the way. So talk about the second season. So is it confirmed? And where can people watch? And if it isn't confirmed, where can they put some input in to help you get another season?
Absolutely. Please On all social media at NBC Roots or Roots Less Travel. Let them know that you want a second season. Let them know how much you're enjoying the show. One of the great things about this summer that we're getting into is that the episodes will continue to run throughout the summer. So
Great.
that's great news.
On NBC.
On NBC, right. And you can also catch the previous episodes, because all episodes have aired now, 8 episodes. You can catch them all on NBC.com or the NBC app if you want to get at it that way, or you can just wait for the weekends to pop up and check out the More You Know block on NBC. But I got to say, the second season, we're still waiting to get word from that. Right. So, let everybody know that you love the show. You want to see more. Tell them you want it to be an hour. Tell them it's too short. So we can get more information in there. But yeah, so as soon as a lot of restrictions lift and we can kind of see where the entertainment industry is going and how we're going to, go forward, I think we'll be good to get a second season.
Yeah, I mean, we're feeling it for everybody's feeling it. I can imagine in your industry you are as well. A lot of people work on a contract basis, and I hope we see things open soon. If by chance somebody was watching this and they're thinking, well, in case there's a second season, I want to be on it. Do you know how people can kind of put their stories out there and propose themselves as participants?
I would say continue to do it on social media. I think, a lot of our social media is the way to go. Hit us up on NBC Roots on Instagram, Roots Less Travel on Facebook. Feel free to hit up Ancestry.com and an Ancestry Twitter. And even myself, you can follow me on at Faruq Adelphia on all social media platforms. And when we get that season 2 announcement, I'll be the first one to let you guys know. And then I'll tell you exactly how you can get on.
Fantastic. Well, such a pleasure to talk with you. I can see the joy in your face as you're doing the show, and certainly I appreciate you bringing that joy to this episode of Elevenses with Lisa. Thank you so much, Faruq. Wonderful, and hopefully we'll see you next season.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Lisa. Appreciate you guys.
Such a nice guy. I so enjoyed chatting with him. And, Faruq doesn't do, of course, the research. They have a whole army of people at Ancestry who do the research. But I think it's really interesting, actually, kind of in preparation for our next topic on saving our research. It's interesting to talk to somebody who doesn't do research themselves and to kind of hear what sparks their interest, what grabs their attention, what gives them the goosebumps, right, on their arms. And that's possible, but we have to be able to tell those stories and have creative ways to do that. So that's going to dovetail right into our topic. And I hope you enjoyed hearing from Faruq. And, he mentioned about sharing on social media. And I know it sounds like those of us online and doing shows and webinars and things that we're always hammering that. But you don't realize how much power you have. You really do. You have all the impact and the power to get the shows that you love out in front of people. And you do that by doing the thumbs up on our videos, on commenting, on sharing out to your Facebook group. Even if you think, well, I only have like one person who wants to see this, you'd be amazed how people who may not be interested in genealogy actually will know somebody and then they'll share it. You guys have the ability to get the word out and to show your interest. And that goes straight back to all the people who make the decisions, like NBC, about whether the show continues, how long it's going to be, whether YouTube shows my video or somebody else's video out to other genealogists when they come to the YouTube platform. You just make a huge difference. So don't be shy. I know sometimes it seems like when you're watching a video, it's like, oh, well, this won't make any difference. It totally makes a difference. It's a very proactive thing that you can do. So thank you so much for supporting all the shows. And I know we all want to help support shows like this that bring these stories out there and help people of all ages really appreciate what it is we're doing as family historians. Oh, you just have to love how that's going to dovetail right into our next conversation. And that is around what you need to know to save your genealogy research from destruction. Oh, what a word that is. It's kind of scary, isn't it, to think about destruction, but literally that's what can happen. I want to start off this segment kind of telling you a little story. Okay, so once upon a time, I got an email from a genealogist who said that She was the president of her genealogy society, and she had gotten word that one of their longtime members, she'd been a member for 50 years, that she'd been doing research, that she'd suddenly passed away. It was very unexpected. And so she really felt like, with the role that this woman had played in their society, she really wanted to reach out personally to the family. And so she sent them cards, and then she also picked up the phone and called one of her daughters. And she was saying, so, we're so sorry. And if you need any assistance, with all of her genealogy, we know she had a lot of things. And she said she could hear the pause on the phone. And the daughter was like, oh, yeah, the genealogy. She's like, uh-oh. She's like, yeah, I know I told Mom I was going to hang on to all that stuff, but I live in an apartment. I can't do that. I don't know. I think I'm just going to take it to the dump. I know. Can you imagine what she thought listening on the phone? And she said, she kind of scrambled, got her thoughts together. She says, wait. I'll come down. It's just an hour or two drive down to your house or to your mom's house. Can I come and I'll pick up all this stuff? Maybe we can, here at the society, kind of figure out how to parse it out to other family members or societies or historical groups that might be interested, because she had so many wonderful things. And the daughter was like, okay, if you want to. So she jumped in her van. She drove down there, and she, I'm getting the right spot here, and she met with them. And when she gets to the front door, here is the other sister, and her lawyer. And she said, they were like, no, you can't take anything out of the house. We don't want to set any precedents that, things are already being dispersed. There's contentions between the sisters about, who's going to get what. And clearly there was a lot of stress in the family and a lot of concern and really arguments about what was going to happen to other things. Things they weren't concerned about the genealogy, but they were very concerned about other monetary items. So the gal who wrote me said, she happens to be married to a lawyer, and she works for lawyers doing research. And she said, how about I get a little paper together and a little contract, and you guys could just both sign off that nobody wants the genealogy, and I could take it. And they kind of went, okay, and so they quickly crafted a paper, got people to sign off on it, and she was able to take everything home. And this is what she took home. Can you imagine? Look at the stuff. Now, we have to appreciate, as a family historian, we look at this and we go, oh, goody, look at all the amazing things there. Non-genealogists look at this and just feel stress, and they go, ugh, what am I going to do? This is a hot mess, and I don't have room for this. I don't have time for this. That's the reaction. And that's what we have to be aware of. And in fact, in some ways, you look at it and you go, well, she's got the black bins and everything. I mean, she made some attempts to get things organized. As you open those, this is what you find. And she said, the gal who wrote me said, it was just amazing, the wealth of not only research, but these rare one-of-a-kind photographs that she had across her family lines. All of this was saved from destruction, literal destruction. We're going to take it to the dump, destruction. And what we kind of learn from this story, the moral of the story is that not everybody looks at our family history the way we do. And not everybody fully understands the value of the research, the work that goes into it. Not everybody feels, and they're not in that place in their life. And what's critical is that we have to start cultivating right out of the gate, early on, before we ever get to that place where we think it's going to pass on to the next generation, to prepare ourselves and our genealogy research so that it can have a life of its own well into the future. We want it to have a life with our descendants and their descendants and their descendants. And we never know who's going to be the next genealogist, do we? In fact, we have to assume most in our family will not be. And that's just true. But we know that there will be some. But the good news is that they don't have to be genealogists to appreciate it or understand it or help you preserve it and pass it on. I think it's interesting. If you look at families, oftentimes you will see that genealogy, or the passion for it, kind of skips generations. I call it, there's the genealogists and the passer-oners, right? And so, if my grandmother was very, very interested in family history, my mom could have cared less. Me, I'm absolutely passionate. It's my whole career. My kids, not so much. But the grandkids are looking kind of curious, right? So maybe that's just something about, I don't want to do what mom does. Mom's already taking care of that. Why should I bother? Or dad's already doing that. Okay, we'll just let him do it. But it can kind of pass. And so we don't want to underestimate that the passer-oners, the people in between the generations, they don't have to be genealogists. They don't have to understand all the paperwork, but they can play and should play an important role in how we can give it a life that continues on down into the generations. And they play a critical role in that. So that's what we're going to talk about. I want to tackle this subject. Today, we're going to talk about some of the mechanics of what you can do and put in place to ensure that some of these decisions get made before, it's too late. Next week, we're going to go on to really talk about how to cultivate some buy-in with your family and not turn them into genealogists, but turn them into people who appreciate the family history and want to help you preserve it and help future generations enjoy it. So we've talked about in the last several episodes, it was actually played into this very nicely, because getting and staying organized is key. Okay, so if you're fairly new to Elevenses with Lisa, you got to go back. I think it started around episode 6 or so. And we started talking about organization. We talked about it from all different aspects and ways to kind of organize and get your files in place so that you can find things. And of course, the better organized they are, the more respect they're going to have. In fact, look at this photograph. So this was a box that I got from my husband's cousin. Now, to me, that's just a gold mine, and it just makes me happy all day long. To a non-genealogist, that looks stressful and disorganized, and I'm not even sure that it's worth hanging on to. That's their mindset. When we leave things in this condition, we actually are actively putting it at risk. And I can't restate that enough, because I've heard it so many times. I mean, after 13 years of doing the Genealogy Gems podcast, I've heard from a lot of people. I've spoken to thousands of people around the world, and this is a universal problem. And what we find is it's just like, if you're dressed kind of shabby, like you've been painting in the house all day, you might not get as much attention at the store when you go to the store from the sales clerk. But if you go in a nice suit and your hair's done and you're kind of put together, all of a sudden you get some respect. Okay, well, your stuff, your genealogy stuff needs respect, and it needs to be clothed properly and organized and made to look like it's the value that it really is. So you can see that when we have piles all over our desk, even when our spouse or our kids walk in, they just go, "Oh, what in the world are you doing in here?" Right? It really gives them the wrong impression of what's important to us. And that's why when I was talking about the paper binders, getting things, even if it's just stick it in a sheet protector, get it in the pending section and do it when you have time. It's not in messy piles on your desk. It's actually in a place where you can retrieve it when you're ready to work on it. But it's not sitting out and giving this false impression that there's a lack of value there. So we want to think about getting things so that when folks walk in, they go, "Oh, looks like okay, she was serious about this." So, I mean, think about it. Would you be more likely to throw the box of loose stuff in the garbage or these binders? In both cases, the non-genealogist really doesn't know what's inside and doesn't really understand it fully. But the chances of them walking in and going, "Oh yeah, I'm just tossing all these binders," that's not near as likely. I can't promise you it would never happen. But I can say that what it does is it demands respect, and it shows, hey, there's something here. Somebody poured love and attention and quality into this project. And so let's take a couple extra seconds before we jump to conclusions or rash decisions. in the moment when somebody passes, particularly a situation like the story I told you where it was unexpected, emotions run high. And what we might normally or logically do in the calm moment is not necessarily what's going to happen in that painful emotional moment, particularly if there is strife in the family over anything. And of course, we all know money can make things like that happen. Let's be real. So I think that we're really doing a good job to kind of be realistic about what the emotional state might be at the time and making sure that our genealogy doesn't look like a burden. It looks like something that's a blessing. So we talk about organizing. We've got files everywhere. We've got paper. We've got digital. So go back and watch the other episodes if you haven't had an opportunity yet. The most important points that we made in those presentations and those conversations was that we want to pick a system that you can follow, one that you can be really consistent on. I know a lot of you became premium members this last week. You've got some great videos to go and watch. There's 6 different full-length videos on Evernote. And specifically, if you're having trouble with the digital files, I heard from a lot of folks who are, the hard drive organization videos will help you with that. And of course, episodes 6 through 9 of Elevenses with Lisa. We talked also about the fact that in your active research, you are gathering stuff. And so we need to organize our digital notes and maybe have one holding place. And I got some questions about this. Let me just kind of restate that when we talk about using a cloud note-taking service like Evernote, I think of Evernote as my active workspace. It's like the virtual version of my desktop. And so I'm making annotations, I'm doing things, I'm clipping things. It's kind of a little bit messy inside of Evernote, but it's all there. When I make a decision, yep, this document's a keeper. This is my family. I've confirmed it. I've made the connections. So maybe I clipped it initially. I'm going to go back and click that link and go back to the original source if I haven't done so already. And I'm going to download the full clean version of that document. And I'm going to archive it on my hard drive. So I'm not worried if there's duplications. Why? Because in the end, I know that my database, my software database, is the last word on what I know so far about my family tree. I know that my binders is the last word on papers that need to be kept. And that's what you can communicate to your family. Your hard drive, those hard drive files that we're organizing and doing the folder system, these need to be kept. These were confirmed. What's going on in Evernote? That's active research. So yes, you're going to give your password and your username for Evernote to your loved ones and maybe put that even in your heirloom binder, your password binder. But the final word, the stuff that really, really needs to get kept, is on your hard drive. It's in your binders. It's within your control. So that's just an important thing to keep in mind. If you, again, are new to Evernote, go back and watch the other episodes. It's basically a note-taking service, but I mention it because there's so much going on there, and it's a piece of the puzzle. It's not just the boxes and the bins that show up at the end once we're gone, but it's also these kinds of things that are still sitting out there. And a couple people had questions about notebooks. I don't use notebooks a whole lot in Evernote. All of that stuff, the notebooks, the tags, that's just for your organizational purposes. I think the key is give the password and the username, put that with all your other passwords that are to be passed on. Know that it may be that there won't be anybody who will surface right away who's going to take on your research. Even if everything in your Evernote account just goes by the wayside because nobody picks it up in the next 10 years. You still have your digital files on your computer hard drive, your paper files in your binder, and your database. These have all hopefully been recorded in your heirloom book because I think they're heirlooms too. Those are the final pieces. This stuff can be reconstructed. This was what you were actively working on. So we're not going to worry too much about making sure that everybody is going to go right in and start using our Evernote files. They may not. That's okay. We also talked about, and I want to mention it because I know we get new viewers every week, that backing up your system is a big part of this. So make sure that you have cloud backup. I hope this is a reminder for some of you who had really good intentions after you watched some of the past episodes and then didn't get your cloud backup set up. It's key. It's part of the perfection. I say perfection. It's part of the protection that we're going to try to put in place So I don't want to not touch on this, because if somebody's watching this and they're saying, oh, she's talking about saving your research from destruction. Well, what about your files? This is a key piece of it, but we've already covered it in depth, so we don't have to go into it in full detail. But I want to mention it, a little jogger reminder, okay? I use Backblaze. You can use whatever service. Do your homework. Make sure it meets your needs. That's what's most important. If you use Backblaze, we love it when you use our URL because it helps make this free show possible. So I always appreciate that. And of course, it's going to take the stuff off your computer. It's going to double duplicate backup over at the backup company. It's all done through the internet, and it just retrieves right back to your computer if you should ever need it. So what can you do? Let's really talk about some of the pieces that we're not as likely to have taken care of yet, okay? And we really haven't covered here on the show. And that's planning ahead. So don't wait. There's some very simple strategic steps that you can take. They're not a lot of fun. They're not very glamorous, but they are important things. I think if you get these in place, you're going to feel better and you're going to rest a little easier that things are going to be well taken care of. So one of the things I have for you is this, what I call a Genealogical Materials Directive. I actually developed this myself because I couldn't find anything quite like it that really captures what I'm doing in genealogy and makes it in one, puts it all in one place for my family so that they know. Again, I'm not concerned that any of my daughters are going to be genealogists and pick the ball right up and keep researching. What I'm concerned about is that they know what's out there in all the different forms that we have our information, and that they can get it to the right people. So this includes what you have, what you want done with it, and this is something that you could very easily print out as well as have in a digital format, and you could include it with your will. Okay, so schedule a little afternoon and sit down and do this. Let's take a closer look at it. What the directive does is it talks about what you have, what you want done with it after you're gone, what your hopes for it are, and then all the people that are involved in the process. Who do you want to kind of take the ball? The person who takes responsibility for this and kind of dispersing things may not be the genealogist at all, but they're somebody you trust, and they're responsible, and they're going to help get it to the right people. Sometimes you're actually going to find as you go through this process that your stuff's going to get divided up, and that's okay. The most important thing is it gets to all the right places. So we're going to identify in the directive who are the people, how do you contact them, and you can give this to your family attorney if you'd like to have them review it if they feel like it's just something that they want to take a quick look at. But you can always put a copy of it with your will. So I'm going to have this in the show notes for this episode. This is episode number 10 of Elevenses with Lisa, and I always publish those within 24 to 48 hours after the live show ends today. So that'll be by the end of the day tomorrow. This will be up on the website, and you can get to the show notes by going to genealogygems.com, and under videos in the blue menu, you'll find Elevenses with Lisa. Just click on that. You'll find all the episodes there. For some reason, my website keeps mixing up the order, but they're all there, okay? I promise, the number 10. And I always post the episode in the next week's newsletter, as well as on the Facebook page for Genealogy Gems. So that's where you're going to be able to download the directive. So you can see here at the top, we say who you are when you're putting this together. We're going to go through and we're going to describe the materials that you have very specifically. And you can see I've tried to come up with as many different kinds of things I can think of that you might have, but there might be others, so you can add those in here as well. Okay, I mean, certainly we all have unique things. So I have photos and computer files, the binders, the paper files, all that kind of stuff. This is where we're going to give that important information. We've all been talking about how do they know when they walk in my office, what's my stuff, and I got it everywhere. This is how they know. This is the tool that you need. How do you want it distributed? So the distribution of your materials, if there are some key items and you've looked at your materials and you think, okay, well, this really just needs to go to family, but I don't have another genealogist. I would like this to go to a particular historical society or a genealogy society because they've expressed an interest, or an archive or a library. All of that can be identified right here in the directive. So you can make copies of this. I've put lots of different options. You can see there's more on the next page, but make photocopies, extra copies of this page, and you can break it out as much as you need to, depending on how you kind of want to divide things up, should you want to divide materials up. You may already have a grandchild who is showing interest, and all you need is a responsible adult who's going to be the passer honor, who's going to hang on to it, pass it on, and get it to them when they're ready for it. So we also have here things like donations, deed of gift. Do you want to donate some of your materials? This is where everything's going to get collected in one place. When you get to the end, now this doesn't make it a formal legal document, but I think there's something very important when we sign off on things, when we show this to our child or a nephew or a niece or whoever it is we're going to kind of put in charge of this. I think it's really nice when they actually put their signature on the paper. They're actually saying, wow, Mom seems to think this is kind of a big deal. Overkill, but okay. Well, all of this is about communicating the value we place on this. We communicate that by how we treat our materials and how they appear. We communicate that by this document. Is it going to hold up in court? I don't know. It doesn't matter. That's not the point of it. The point of it is to get it all in one place and to start to get buy-in and start to build a relationship with the person who's going to help you make sure that your materials are going to be saved for generations to come. So go over it with them, show it to them, ask if they have any questions, sign off on it, and just say, all you're saying is, reassure me that you're the one who's willing to take on making sure that the donations get out to the right people, that these materials get out to the right people. So again, you're going to be able to download this form by the end of the day tomorrow. If you're watching live, if you're watching the replay, it's probably just look down in the video description for this episode and you'll see a link to the show notes for episode number 10 so that you can download this directive. Like I said, talk to your lawyer. If it's important to you that this all be very, very legal and you get it notarized and all that, you can absolutely do that. Everybody needs to do what works for them. So how do you identify who your researcher's keeper is? Well, you talk to your relatives. Determine who's going to be willing to care for and preserve your research. These are conversations you can have around the table. You can invite people over, take them out for a cup of coffee and say, I wanted to chat with you about this. If it feels like it just starts going off in, different directions at the dinner table. And think about who you would trust and who would be a good candidate for this. Again, they don't have to be the genealogist. And invite them out to coffee or whatever and go have a conversation about if they'd be willing to kind of just take this role. That it's not going to take a lot of time. You've already got everything lined out for them. Show them the directive. And I bet there's at least one person, and if not, a really good friend. I had somebody send me some materials they were hoping I could help get out to other family members. It was the best friend of a woman who really had nobody directly left in her family. And, a best friend can go a long way too. It doesn't have to be a family member to help you do this. When you get your directive done, of course, you're going to give them literally a copy of it. Okay, so you're going through it together, you're signing off on it together, give them a photocopy of it. Whether or not they hang on to it, whatever, who knows, but getting it out. We talk about getting things in multiple places. Get a copy in with your will, get a copy in your safe deposit box, get a copy in your office in the heirloom binder. That's the way to make sure, guaranteed, something's going to get in front of somebody when the time comes, and they're going to know that it's there. Donations is another question I get quite a bit, and you can do this with a deed of gift, okay? So start looking into the archives, the genealogy and historical societies, the organizations that might be very interested, and oftentimes they're interested based on location. So your family may not be very well known or whatever, and there may not be known direct descendants. But if you look at the locations, you have a piece of that community's history in your family history, don't you? And so that could be of huge value to many different types of libraries and archives and societies. So you can make the appropriate arrangements with them, clearly outline your arrangements in your directive. So whatever you end up putting together, and chances are that organization is going to have its own contract, you're going to want to make sure that you make note of this in the directive. Okay, that's how the person that you've designated is going to help execute this when the time comes. And of course, I'm not a lawyer, so talk to your lawyer if you have a question about it. But what I'm talking about is really putting in real life practical things that can help step in when the time is right. So you can have a signed formal legal agreement with the organization that you want to donate with. Like I said, many of them are going to have their own. So you're going to want to take a very close look at it, because what you're really doing is you're transferring ownership and legal rights of your research material to that repository. And one of the things that you'll want to be keenly aware of is that they probably will not promise you that it can stay on a shelf forever. Shelf space everywhere is at a premium, right? So talk to them about, what format would be better for you. Do you want the paper? Do you want the original documents? Or would you like me to start scanning things? And I think that having things scanned and having them in multiple locations isn't a bad idea either. So just know that their contract is going to have things that are in their interests. You want to look at them and you want to really understand them so that you know there may be a clause in there that says we have the right to toss this if we have to. So if that concerns you, it's not that it's not worth doing, because I think it's still fantastic to get your materials and your research out to the community, but you may want to have other alternatives as well. So your stuff can be duplicated. That's not a problem. It's in everybody's best interest to read that agreement. And again, it may include other issues of interest to them. So make sure that they thoroughly explain it to you. And if you have questions, you check with your attorney and have them take a look at that agreement. I have a couple of resources for you, and yes, I will have these in the show notes for you. So there's two really good brochures from the Society of American Archivists. One is called Donating Your Personal or Family Papers to a Repository. It's a great little booklet. Plus, also there's one on specifically a guide to deeds of gift. So check out the show notes. Again, if you're watching the video replay, it's going to be down in the video description, that link, or head to genealogygems.com. And I'll have those links there for you to get those brochures. If you need more information or just more help or guidance, talk to the Society of American Archivists, and we'll have a contact for them as well in the show notes. And many people ask about, can I donate to the Family History Library, which is a very logical place for you to share your materials. I put a tiny URL here because the URL is very long, and yes, I'll have it in the show notes for you. They've moved this information around over the years. I believe it now it's part of the wiki for Family Search, and it's been moved around in there as well. But at that link, you're going to be able to download the authorized gift form if you'd like to donate to them. And also they have guidelines, so check out the Family Search gift donations and loans guidelines, because they can help guide you quite a bit. And I'm sure that you can also give them a call if you have questions. But I think you're going to find a lot of great information at this link that's going to help you. So that brings us to the end of talking about this today, but we are going to be talking about it next week. In fact, if I could hand you around to it, I would do it, because you got to get around to it. That's the only way to make this thing work. Next week, we're going to talk about, I was going to call it preparing your relatives, but it's really winning over your relatives. And I think this is absolutely hand in hand with the mechanics of things like deeds of gifts and donations. We've got to talk about how to cultivate an interest and change the mindset of our family members to at least appreciate it and see it and to value it. You'll get what I'm talking about when we meet here together for episode number 11. So let's head back. You guys have been very busy in chat. I hope you've been sharing your ideas and helping each other out with this. There's so many, of course, details that we could talk about, but our hour has come to an end. It's amazing how we can get a full hour in here all the time. Check out the chat. Of course, it should be there after the replay is done. And I just want to leave you with one last thought, and I'm going to go through chat when we get all done here, and I'll be answering some of your questions next week and probably in the show notes as well. So check out the show notes. That's a real help for you guys. Everything is there in detail. You don't have to take notes while you're watching the show. But my thought for the day for you is it's not about the finished pedigree chart, really. It's about the journey and the people. And here's a little photo. This is actually a little teaser of what we're going to do next week. This is a photograph of my husband on a trike with his grandpa. He called him Bumpa. Bumpa Mansfield. He was in the Centennial Syncopators and the big poster I put in my family room. And I love this because that genealogical journey is such a joy for all of us. And it isn't necessarily for everybody. It's really just the journey of being part of a family and being kind of the caretaker of your family's story. And of course, as I said before, the living people matter even more than the dead people. So we're going to talk about the living people next week. Thank you so much for joining me, my friends. Stay smart, stay brave, and help YouTube help other genealogists find this show. Give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, share it. You have all the power. All right, I'll talk to you next week. Thanks for joining me.